Welcome. This is the Fly Fishing Journeys podcast with host Rob Giannino, where we have great conversation with really awesome experts from within the fly fishing community. You see, the fly fishing lifestyle is a journey, and we're glad you're on this journey with us. Check out flyfishingjourneys.com for more podcasts, and please subscribe on your favorite podcast player. Here's your host, Rob Giannino.
All right, guys, welcome to the next edition of the Fly Fishing Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Rob Giannino, and I am so excited to have my great buddy, Icelandic compadre, Sindri Jónsson, on the podcast. Sindri, thanks for being on, man.
Oh, it's a pleasure, buddy.
Man, you're back again. Last time we were on your podcast, we were sitting in your lodge up in the Highlands.
That seems like a long time ago.
What?
That was many trips ago.
Many trips ago, but we had some great times over the years in Iceland. This time we're talking about something a little different. We're not talking about the Highlands. We're not actually talking about regular trout. We're not actually talking about char.
We're going for sea runs.
Sea run brown trout. And, man, an incredible fish. You guys have this lodge down in the Battle Hill area of Iceland. Where exactly is the Battle Hill Lodge in Iceland?
So Battle Hill Lodge is on the south coast of Iceland, just outside of the town of Kirkjubæjarklaustur, that I remember you love trying to pronounce.
I just say Kirkjubæjar.
Kirkjubæjar, yeah. The town with the gas station.
Yes.
Which is basically what it is. But no, it's about 3.5-4 hour drive from the airport on the south side. We have a lodge there that we're fishing 3 different rivers for sea run browns.
We're going to dive into all those sea run browns because they're actually a very special fish. Very hard fighting, very beautiful, very large. Before we get into all the sea run brown trout, give our listeners just an update on what's going on with Iceland. Now, they're probably going to hear this a bit later, so we know we've had a ton of volcanic activity. Over the past few years, I think you guys hit a volcano button in the summertime.
Pretty much.
To get everybody to come over to see the volcanoes. And they've always been, we call them touristy volcanoes.
Yeah, where you just walk up and take a look at them. Yep. Now one of them came up in a less than ideal place next to a town called Grindavík, which had to be evacuated now. So no one's living. About 3,000 people had to evacuate the town. That's about an hour outside Reykjavik. So, but, I mean, the whole island is a volcano. What are you going to do?
Yeah, you guys are used to it. You've had many over the years. But this one was a little bit more serious. I know in the past, like when we've been hiking and done the volcano trips, you can actually just like walk right up to the lava. I mean, it's just kind of meandering, go by you.
It's the same thing with these, like the eruption been going on lately now. It's just the lava came up a lot closer to a town than the other ones.
Yeah, so they lost, I believe, about 4 houses.
Yeah, 4 houses went under fire or went under lava, but they put up like basically land dams to try to block the lava flows from getting into the main town.
Yeah, and then there was some issues with the water treatment plant. I guess that was safe.
Yeah, so basically the lava flows took out some power lines and didn't take out the power plant or the water treatment plant that is for that area, but it took out the pipelines and stuff. So they were without water for a few days while they set up a new pipeline over the first lava.
Unbelievable. And what you had told me yesterday was the town is no longer going to be inhabitable.
It doesn't look like it, not at the moment anyway. Like, it's too close to the active zone now, and there's been a lot of earthquakes, so there's a lot of big cracks through the town, and it's just not really safe to be in that town. Yeah. But that is a tiny part of Iceland that is considered a danger zone.
Yeah, and even like through all the volcanoes over the years, I mean, there'd be active volcanoes. You fly right in.
Right into it. And I mean, you hiked up to a few of them.
Yeah, missed them both times.
Missed them usually when dragging your guide away from the river to go look at a volcano.
Yeah, and then last year I went up there and we saw all these long faces. It's like a 14-mile, 20-kilometer hike. And I saw all these long faces of these people back in the parking lot. I'm like, this doesn't look good. And I said, how is it? Tell me. Me and my son, we had bought all of our snacks. We had bought up all our water. We were about to hike up. And they're like, no, it died.
It just finished.
It died that day. And I had been watching it on the internet, on Facebook, and just so excited to go up with my drone. And it's really cool because they allow you to drone that stuff. It's really cool in Iceland like that. Yeah, I'm like, so I turned to my son, CJ. I said, CJ, what do you want to do? He said, I want to hike it anyway. So that was super cool. It was still kind of steaming, and if you put your drone right over it, you can see
some lava,
a little bit of lava in the pot. But once it starts getting that cap, you just know it's about
finished.
It's about to die. But it was a fun hike. I was happy we did it. But enough about the volcanoes. What we can talk about is how much beautiful stuff there is in Iceland. One of my favorite places to go. I've been 9 times now.
Yep.
And it's one of my favorite places.
That's in what, 4 years?
Yeah.
I think first trip we did 2019, was it?
I think that might be right. I love it.
Well, it's been, you've been coming twice a year now for a while.
For a while. And the reason being is there's always something new. There's always something to explore.
Like I said, I mean, the whole island is basically just volcanoes, glaciers, and rivers.
Waterfalls.
So a lot of waterfalls, a lot of different waters, a few different species of fish we go for.
Yeah. And we've had a blast up in the Highlands, probably one of the most beautiful places in the world to fish. You can fish right up against waterfalls, and the trout is exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And you can catch that beautiful brown trout with the giant waterfall in your background. And what I like about it, too, is I always like to add on a day or 2 or 3 for the sightseeing. And not just the typical sightseeing that, you got to have like a giant bus of tourists taking pictures of this awesome waterfall.
Not going to the same glacier everyone.
Yeah.
But like just renting a 4x4 and going a little on a dirt road, you'll see a lot cooler stuff.
Yeah, and this year for me, it was the East Coast.
Oh, yeah, gorgeous.
Or I say this year, last trip, which had been in the fall. And I rented a four-wheel drive. And you don't need it for the ring road. But I went down the East Coast from Akureyri down to Battle Hill Lodge. And that East Coast, the fjords, the waterfalls, like getting off the...
It's just spectacular.
It's awesome.
Not a lot of people out there.
Not nearly as many people on the East Coast as the South Coast.
No.
So tell her, and where I came around, it was basically, you kind of smack dab right into Battle Hill Lodge. You guys are right off the ring road.
Yeah.
We actually have this pool called Tourist Pool.
Nobody likes Tourist Pool.
I like it.
You like Tourist Pool.
There's a ton of fish in Tourist Pool.
There's a ton of fish in Tourist Pool. So Tourist Pool is basically a pool in a river Fossalar, but it happens to be right on the highway next to a waterfall. So you get people stopping and looking at you while you're fishing. Pretty much the other, 100 miles of water we're fishing from Battle Hill, you won't see another person.
Yeah.
But that spot, you'll have a bunch of tourists taking pictures of you while you're catching your fish.
Asking you why you're releasing the fish. And there's all the same questions they have, You just get the same question in 17 different languages.
Why do you put it back?
Yeah, they all want to know why you're releasing the fish. But it's kind of cool because you can catch a 15-pound brown trout, sea run brown or bigger, and have an audience. This is the coolest thing. You've got 30 people just watching you.
Yeah, no, I don't fish that pool.
No.
It's all yours, Rob.
Mats hates that pool.
Yes.
I'll be on the bank with it. He'll be on the bank watching his clients. Sometimes I'll pop over to Tourist Pool if I see him in there. And I'll be on the bank with him, just chit-chatting with him, and people will come up to us, and he'll try so hard to be so polite, but as soon as they leave, you can see he's steaming inside because he doesn't want anybody bothering him.
But I think if you're a fishing guide in Iceland, chances are you don't like people in the sense that you don't like crowds, you're pretty remote most places.
Yeah.
So if you stick a fishing guide in Iceland somewhere where random tourists come walking up to him asking questions about basically anything,
why are you putting the fish back? What do you use to catch the fish? All that questions. But he loves people. He loves his guests.
That's the difference.
It's the tourists that bother him. But he's a great guy, and he's always a ton of fun to spend time with. I call him my favorite German, Swedish, Icelandic guide. And then that's when all the other guides say, well, don't say that he's Swedish and don't say that he's Icelandic.
Don't say
he's just German.
It's just German.
He's a good dude. Anyway, so we have 3 rivers there. You mentioned the names. Say those names again.
So we got Skaftá, and the area we're primarily fishing in that is called Vatnamót, which is basically it's a giant glacial river, all sand bottom, very wide, 2 miles wide, where it's widest, and that goes straight into the ocean. The fish start by running up the Skaftá, and then they go into these side rivers that we're fishing for them. So down in Vatnamót, double-handed rods are very useful, a lot of wading and sand that you will sink into, as I'm sure you've experienced.
No, it's not for the faint of heart. And I'll tell Christian, we have to be careful with the age of some of our clients who we bring out there. If they're a little bit older, they got bad hips.
Yeah, no, you don't want to be in the middle, because sometimes you have to wade into the middle of that 2 mile wide river.
Yeah.
It's not deep in most places because it's just black sand bottom that's constantly shifting, but it's extreme flats fishing.
It's amazing, you know, and
when you hit it right, when you find a deep pocket somewhere, because the pockets are never in the same spot, you find a deep pocket with a large group of fresh sea runs.
It's amazing.
You get some spectacular fishing.
Yeah, it was probably, I would say honestly, it wasn't my favorite spot originally until, you know, if I would get skunked, because it's a lot of work to get out there, and I always single-handed it. But this last time I went with Outney, I said, all right, I'm going to two-hand this. I've never had two-handed before. I've had some lessons. My friend Adam helped me out in Alaska. He kind of got me started. And then Outney gave me some tips.
It's just so much easier once.
And I got it. Not every time. Not every time. But I started making some casts. And I caught a fish. My first fish in Vatnamoot. My first fish on a double-handed. And now I'm in love with both. Now I'm in love with two-handed. I'm in love with Vatnamoot. And I started to see how Outney was reading those seams.
Yeah, because it is just flat, black sand, or you're just looking for some kind of disturbance on the top of the water that would indicate that there's a deeper pocket there. Because as soon as you find a deeper pocket, you find the fish.
It's amazing. And to see Outney read those seams and to get more familiar with how to fish that river instead of just with the one-hander, now with a two-hander, swinging
through, and you can cover so much more water with the double-hander there.
And when they take it.
Yeah, no, it is boom, boom. They hit it hard.
And to take a swing like that on a two-hander and to kind of hold that fish and release that fish, it made me fall in love with the Vatnamoot, and it made me fall in love with spay fishing, because now I'm doing it the next 3 days. Going for steelhead in the Pacific Northwest. And now, because of that day on the water, the last time I went with Ben, I just videoed. I just walked and I fished a little bit, but it was a spay day, and I didn't know how to do it, so I didn't fish. But now I can actually go steelheading. You can
go and try the steelheading.
Yeah, because
which is a lot of fun.
Which is a lot of fun, and because of the Vatnamoot.
Yeah. And then once you get out of Vatnamoot, the first river, smaller river we're fishing is Fossalar, and then when you get further up, it changes name to Þverávötn. It's the smallest of the three rivers we're fishing, but I mean, it's not tiny. But there, you're using single-handed rods. You're either using streamers, nymphs, or even like surface flies if conditions are right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful river. I mean, gorgeous.
Gorgeous river where it runs by the lodge and down there.
Right by the lodge, you've got this super green mountain as a backdrop. And if I've seen it, like the same section have 7 waterfalls, have 1 waterfall,
yep.
The same spot just based upon the rain.
Just how much water is in that river. And it's constantly, it goes up and down the river like water depending on rain levels and stuff like that. But yeah, there's some really nice pools on that, and then a lot of pocket water.
Fun and gorgeous fish, and
a lot of small waterfalls.
Yeah, you can fish it in the certain times of year for like regular brown trout and char too.
Char, yeah. It is not a very prolific resident fish. It's like it's a cold river, which is why most of the browns decide to go to the ocean. But you caught some nice char in there, I believe.
I caught like a 6-pound char,
especially in the upper section just before it comes out of the lake. Some nice char up there. Usually.
Yeah, it was like almost like a pond, not a pond, but like above some of the pools, it gets really wider.
Yeah.
And we caught a huge brown in there and a big char.
Some nice fish in there.
Why don't we talk about the times of years? Because you've got a couple main times of year.
So basically in the spring, so April and through about mid-May, we're fishing for the fish as they're heading back downriver, going to the ocean.
Yep.
Then we're usually fishing Fossalar, not so much. The fish tend to leave that earlier for the lower system just because it's the coldest of the rivers.
Okay.
Then we're primarily fishing Vatnamoot and Geirlandsá, which is the third river. Then in the fall, starting in, the first runs of sea runs are going to show up down in Vatnamoot late July, early August, just depending on the season. Mm-hmm. And then through August, September, the main runs will be happening until we close the season on October 20th. And then pretty much, early season, we're fishing the lower section. Later in the season, starting like after mid-September, basically, there'll be fish throughout the entire system.
Hi, I'm Angela with Cross Current Insurance. I manage our popular guide and outfitters insurance program. I've fished with guides in the U.S. and abroad, so I know the risks you face on and off the water. Our guide program provides liability coverage for your clients, boats, gear, and more. Plus, we donate a portion of our profits to industry nonprofit organizations and you get to vote for who our donation goes to. So, whether you are a new guide or have been guiding for many years, check us out at crosscurrentinsurance.com. Tight lines.
How many guides does Fish Partner kind of employ on a full day in the heart of the season, all over the country?
So, on a typical day in the summer month, we'd have about 15 guys out.
15?
Yeah.
You have about 15 guides around the country in different areas.
That I would say would be 15 guys. In June, July, August, about 10, 15 guys per day would be guiding, but we have more guides that are, say, like 10, 15 guys are full-time, and then we have another 15 that are the weekend warrior types that do,
filling day tours.
Fill in day tours, do a week trip here and there when they have time off, but have other full-time jobs.
Yeah, I just wanted the listeners to understand just the size and the capability that Fish Partner has. I mean, you're one of the premier outfitters in all of Iceland. You have lodges in different parts of the country. So the lodges would be obviously up in the Highlands.
Up in the Highlands.
Down in the lake.
Down by the Lake Thingvallavatn, we have a decent operation as well. Then Battle Hill Lodge. We do a little bit of stuff up north. We have a cabin. We don't have a full-service lodge, but we have some cabins up on the Laxá.
Yep.
And then a few other places in the Highlands we have some operations. Area around Norðlingafljót, Arnarvatnsheiði, we have, those aren't lodges. Those are no electricity, basic cabins for people that really want to get out there and rough it.
DIY?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We range DIY as well. I mean, all water in Iceland is private, so DIY, you have to go through an outfitter or the landowner just to arrange for access. Yep. But we'll arrange access for you for anyone who wants to do DIY.
Explain that too, because I talk in my talks about Iceland when I do my talks at the shows about different ways to do Iceland, and I often say the most economical way to visit Iceland is through like a 6-day fishing trip.
Yeah, I mean you'll see a lot of the country where a lot of people don't get to see.
Yeah.
Because most people stick to the highway, whereas we go a little off the beaten path.
Yep.
I mean, we've taken you to some remote spots.
Very cool spots.
But, I mean, you can do that. You can do a 5-day lodge stay somewhere and have everything included. Or you can just contact us, say, hey, I want to rent a car. I want to go fish somewhere remote. We'll hook you up with maps, licenses, and send you on your way.
Yeah, and, a lot of people who can't or aren't going to do like a full 6-7 day fishing trip dedicated to fishing different rivers every day, but they're in Iceland with their wife. They might be doing like a full ring road tour.
We'll do day trips, or we can arrange for access if you want to go fishing on your own one day, or pretty much everything in between.
So explain like the access, because it's like landowners.
Yeah. So
either, it's the river, the lake. I mean, it's like a beat system. It's not like, we're here in Seattle or from your home state where you can buy a license that covers the whole state, whether it be in-state or even out-of-state. It doesn't work like that in Iceland.
No,
every river is
private. So basically, but it's very different from the states where basically you can stay in the water below the high water mark and fish that, and anyone can fish anyway. Back in Iceland, anyone can go hiking anywhere to any river. Anyone can go swimming in any river they want, or float it, or whatever they want. It is just the fishing rights to put a fly in the water and to basically harvest the natural resources off that river that belongs to the landowner who owns that piece of property. So how it usually works is you have a large river, that few landowners that own a piece of property on that river, they would get together, start an association for that river, and then they would lease out the rights to that river for a few years at a time to an outfitter like us or any of the other outfitters in Iceland.
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest things to do in the winter is spend the weekend at a fly fishing show. I mean, where can I spend the day learning about my favorite sport from the absolute best in the industry? Depending upon the location, you could run into Jeff Currier, a world-class angler who has caught over 450 species of fish on the fly. He could be doing a casting demonstration, talking in a presentation room, or drawing beautiful trout on one of his legendary fly boxes or coffee mugs. Maybe you will meet Joe Humphreys, a legend in the sport, on the casting pond or author's booth. Maybe you will see Charlie Craven, Landon Mayer, Tim Flagler, Pat Dorsey, or Uncle Cheech. These and many more of the fine professionals are part of the largest consumer of fly fishing show events in the world. At the shows, you will have tying demonstrations, casting instruction, featured seminars on dozens of relevant topics, destination talks, classes, and much more. You'll have manufacturers showing off their latest and best fly fishing products. There's a casting pond to demo that new fly rod you've been thinking about. There will be lodges and outfitters from all over the world offering show specials so you will get a great deal on your next big fishing trip. There will be special events like the IF4 Film Festival. The Women's Showcase and Fly Fishing Journeys will be there doing live podcasts throughout the show. It's just an amazing event that provides a weekend of smiles, laughter, and a good time had by all. You can find all the details at flyfishingshow.com.
You guys can then come to shows, or you can have your own outfitting company.
Yeah.
And then you can help people kind of enjoy Iceland and get the rights to that river for that day. So it's like a day pass.
Yeah, so usually or day, or sometimes in like package, you're just staying for 6 or 7 days, and that's all included. But yeah, usually it's on a day pass basis. And passes can be anywhere from $10 for some small pond somewhere with trout to a couple of $100 for a premium trout river to thousands and thousands of dollars for like the high-end salmon rivers.
Yeah. Some people don't like to hear the thousands and thousands of dollars.
But I'm a trout bum, so I don't do that.
Yes.
Well, I do some salmon fishing, but I don't like the $1,000 for salmon fishing.
Yeah. And, you know, there are spots where you could pay thousands of dollars a day to fish that river.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so that's kind of how you can fish Iceland is you can go through an outfitter, you can get your day pass, and, you know, if you're there with your spouse and you're doing a ring road tour, you want to do a day pass, what I would recommend is contact us, contact Sindri, contact myself. We can kind of see what you want to do, whether it be a trout, char, or salmon,
whatever, and then see what's available in the area you're staying, and then we'll send you what options you got, and you can just say, hey, I want a like 1 day guided trip, and then we'll send you a guide would take you out and
and that was the other thing I was going to mention is like even through your day tour you can choose to do that either guided or unguided. Because like you just might want to, you know, pay for your license for the beat
but not have a guide.
And you know, I recommend probably going with a guide at least initially, like any place. It's a new country probably for you, so you can kind of get a feel for the water. But before we jump back into Battle Hill and talk more, because I want to dive into that sea trout thing, tell our listeners a bit about the lakes, because we've done some great lake fishing. We've got this beautiful
brown backdrop here.
Yeah, you were my guide on that day right there, buddy.
That was your first trip, I think 20 minutes after. No, about an hour after you landed in Iceland.
About an hour after I landed in Iceland, you took me out to the lake. It was blowing wind. I had my new hat from Quiznos. Do you remember this Quiznos story, or do you want me to tell it?
Yeah, go for it.
You want me to tell it? Okay. So we landed in Iceland, me and Kamisa, we landed in Iceland, and we had been there for like 10 minutes. We were starving. We just got off the plane, and we were like, we've heard about all this Icelandic food. You know, we might have to have shark or sheep face or whatever it was. And we wanted to stop and get some food, but we weren't ready to dive into like all like the sheep face at this point. But we said, hey, let's take us to lunch. If we leave it up to you. You know, you're going to take us to some place you thought we might want to go for lunch. You're like, guys, I know where we can go. I got to get gas. And at the gas station, there's a Quiznos. We're going to take you to Quiznos.
We just wanted to go fishing. That was the most quickest way to do it.
We wanted to go fishing. We said, we'll get some quick Quiznos. But my favorite part was at Quiznos, I got my Icelandic hat, my lucky Icelandic hat. And because in like 20 minutes after that, you had put Tim on an 8.5 pound brown trout and me on a 9 pound brown trout. We're very clear about that.
Yeah, I've heard this story both from you and from Tim, and the numbers don't match.
No. Well, I have a third party. Harrison Hughes took pictures of both fish
as they were being weighed.
And he has verified that mine was bigger. So Tim can think whatever he wants. But yeah, so you have the lakes, and this was the little lake.
What we call Lake Vitlingavatn, which is basically it's a tiny little pond, but it is right next to the biggest lake in Iceland called Lake Þingvallavatn. And these lakes get connected at various times during the year when there's big flooding, then little creeks run in between them, and fish from the big lake will go back and forth to see. And Lake Thingvellir has these enormous brown trouts. Fishing there is best in the spring, April, May, but we'll catch them all summer in the little lake because they get stuck in there during once the waters drop and there's no longer a connection to the big lake.
So tell us about the big lake. I mean, as far as like these fish can be over 20 pounds.
Yeah, so I mean the biggest fish there have been up to 30 pounds, but like 20 pounds are usually caught every year. So fish 30, 35 inch.
Amazing.
Biggest ever was 42. So that is a big brown trout, and they just live in this giant lake called Lake Thingvellir, which is and they were originally sea-run browns, but they got landlocked in that lake about 10,000 years ago. The last ice age ended, and they still behave like sea-run browns. So in the lake, they'll school up. So pretty much you'll have days where nothing is happening. Then your buddy hooks up. Then you're probably going to hook up right after him because there's probably a few of them coming by. And they still have pretty much colorations of sea runs when they're in that big lake. They got that silvery color as opposed to the brown one you'll see in the little lake. And yeah, they're eating other fish, or you're checking streamers most of the time. There's some places, I mean, they'll take a nymph for a dry if your conditions are like that, but they'll be taking streamers most of the time. These fish, they live in clean, cold water, so they get old. There's fish up to 19, 20 years old that have been tagged in the lake. Another thing about them, they only spawn every 2 to 3 years opposed to every year, so they have that extra year just to pack on weight, which we like.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. It's a great place. I want to find out exactly why we can catch them in these spring months, the April and May. And I want to ask you that question specifically, how our tactics for them. And then we want to dive back into Battle Hill, the sea trout. We're going to go over all the tips and tricks, all the tactics on how you can get yourself set up for a sea trout trip to Iceland. We're going to do that in 1 second. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with Sindri.
Okay, guys, it's with great pride and so much excitement to bring to you our newest partnership and sponsor, Nature's Spirit. As you guys know, we're very selective on who we partner with and have advertised on this podcast, so this company is absolutely the real deal. I can't tell you how many of my friends came up to me and said, man, these guys have great products. So if you don't know, Nature's Spirit is a fly tying materials manufacturing company based in Kuski, Idaho. They pride themselves in hand-selected, high-quality fly tying materials. They are known for the best quality deer, elk, and moose hair, strung feather products, natural dubbing, and hand-selected feathers. Their strung marabou has a great color range. It's reliably 4 to 5 inches in length with consistency in colors. All their natural materials are cut and dyed in-house. All their hair gets hand-sorted for quality and grading. They work with many American sources for hunted bird products. In addition to their manufactured products, Nature's Spirit is a proud U.S. distributor of some fantastic brands, including Honick Hooks and Rods, Partridge Hooks, FNF, Raid Zap Organic Resins, Largerton Spooled Products, Hens Products, and many more. You can follow along with Nature's Spirits on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You can find them at Nature's Spirit Fly Tying. And very important, to order your quality Nature's Spirit products, contact or stop into your local fly shop today.
All right, we're back with Sindri. We're talking about the big lake. We're going to find out what these fish are eating and why we can catch them in April and May. What are the reasons why we have great success in the spring and less in the summer?
So April, May, basically ice off at the lake. First part of the lake that's going to come alive is the shallows close to bank. Once you get later into the summer, I mean, if you stand at the lake and fish there all year, you're going to catch browns from June, July, August, September. Yep. That's not the thing. But April, May, they're close to the shore. What they're eating is close to the shore, which are stickleback and small Arctic char. So everyone's close to the bank where the food and the first hatches of insects are coming to life. Whereas once you get into the later summer months, it starts warming up a little bit. They go out to the middle of the lake into deeper water. Mm-hmm. So awfully hard to catch big brown trout in 40, 50 yards of water in the middle of the lake. So in the springtime, we're pretty much mostly just using streamers. It's anything that will imitate a stickleback, a juvenile Arctic char, even a small brown trout would do the trick. Depending on where the lake you are is what kind of line you're going to be using. So in the north side, where you have a lot of these deep cracks, where you're standing on the bank and there's a 20-yard crack right in front of you straight into the lake. There you're going to be using sink tips or full sinking line. On the south side of the lake, where it's more sand, gravel bottom, and more the gradient isn't quite as heavy in the drop-off, you're just floating line, maybe intermediate, or just floating line and weighted streamers.
Man, that is the most succinct definition or understanding of why that big lake fishes like that. I've never really, I guess, asked you that question so deeply before and got a very precise answer like that.
But then there's other places where on the lake there's a few hot spots where June, July, August, you'll catch them, but it's not going to be quite as prolific as you would in the spring months.
Yep. So that's awesome, Sindri. Thank you for that explanation on the Little Lake and the Big Lake. Two of my favorite places to fish in the world. Love the Highlands. Love the beauty of the Highlands. I want to get back to Battle Hill because I had an incredible trip myself there this past September, October,
yeah.
Yeah.
You're right at the end of the month, right?
You're right. And we were there, and the guys were there, Phil Tuttle and Gilbert Rowley, and then Nick was there. And they were working on their new movie that has just released.
And it's just epic.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. Tell us about the movie.
So, as always, Gilbert Rowley, Phil Tuttle, they make good content. They make good movies. They came. Fishing was pretty good.
Yeah.
They shot some cool footage for us. So it's on the IF4 Film Festival now. And hopefully it seems to be doing pretty well on that film festival.
Yeah, so it's called Vivid Dreams. It's actually written and edited by Nick.
Yeah.
But he brought Gilbert and Phil
on to help out with the filming and the fishing. And those guys just make good stuff.
Yeah, it's really cool. I saw the movie, Vivid Dreams. It's not out for public release yet outside of the film festival. So you can go to IF4 or Fly Fusion magazine, and then you can see where the film festival is if it's coming to an area near you. And then I believe what happens is at the end of the year,
they'll release it full on.
Yeah, for YouTube and allow people to watch it just anywhere. But right now it's part of the film festival, so it's called Vivid Dreams. You can follow Gilbert Rowley or Phil Tuttle, and they will have some clips of the movie if you want to watch some clips. But really
I heard someone here outfished them that week, though.
I tried to crash the party. I did everything I could to get into this movie. Every morning they would ask me how I did. I'd show them like a 80-plus centimeter sea-run brown trout. I was out fishing with Outney. And they're like, Rob, we really wish we were filming you this week. I was like, well, we can make that happen if you want, guys. And the cool part was we've actually talked, and we're going to be, trying to get together, do a movie together someday.
Oh, that would be sick.
So it really worked out really well. I've interviewed them before, Intense Media guys, Derek Olthius, Phil Tuttle, all those guys. Yeah, Courtney Boyce, all those dudes. But first time I got to fish with them, so it was a ton of fun. But you got to check out all the stuff that they're doing. They do
they do amazing.
Like
film.
you said, amazing. But tell us about that week, because what they were filming was spectacular. It's the Battle Hill Lodge. Tell us about the connection to the UNESCO and the lava field. And
so right outside the lodge you have what we call Eldhraun, which is a lava field from a 1700s eruption in Iceland called the Laki eruption. It's one of the biggest eruption in historical times in Iceland, and it devastated the country, to be honest, and caused a lot of famine all over. But it created this absolute gorgeous lava field that is all moss covered now, and it's a UNESCO Natural Heritage Site today, and that is right outside the lodge. Literally,
you can stand on it.
Lodge is on a hill. Bottom of the hill is where the Natural Heritage Site begins.
Yeah, that's your picture at night when you watch the sunset. And then it sunsets over this incredible mountain range.
Which is the biggest glacier in Iceland, Vatnajökull. So it is just absolute stunning scenery out there, and that's just around the lodge. Then you go on to, for example, Geitlandshá River, which is the third river we didn't get to earlier, which is, mid-sized of the three rivers we're fishing. Bottom section is running through like sandy, gravelly meanders through the valley, grassy banks, and then it just hits this absolutely spectacular canyon with big waterfalls coming off into it. And I heard you did pretty well up in those canyons.
Oh, just amazing, man. We were supposed to find him in this one pool. So Outney and I, we came around the bend, we parked, and it's supposed to be like on this certain pool. And before we even get to that pool below is when I fished it this summer. And Tim and I were fishing for Atlantic salmon. You can even get some Atlantic salmon in that pool and some char. I mean, I don't know if there's any char in that pool.
There's some, but not much.
No. Mostly sea run browns.
Mostly sea run browns. Some browns, some salmon, and some sea run char.
Okay. Well, they weren't in this first pool, which they had been previously. And we were kind of surprised, and I think they might have been there. We just didn't get any bites. But they weren't there in numbers. So we kept walking up. And Outney says, I think I know where they are. So we were fishing these middle pools, and then we keep walking up, and we didn't quite see any, weren't getting any hits, and all of a sudden we went up in this bank, and I looked down, and I said, Outney, I think I found the fish.
You found a big pot.
It was a huge, and there had to be, I could count at least 15 massive sea run brown trout. We're talking like 80-plus centimeters. And I hooked up into one, and these guys were hot. I mean, we literally have to, run up and down different banks.
Yeah.
And the canyon, the banks, and we'd almost get it to a quiet spot down below.
And then you hit the next rapids and gone.
Well, Outney told me, no, you can't go in there. You have to hold it.
You got to hold them up.
Hold it up, break it off, whatever you have to do. Do not let it go down into that next rapids because it's gone.
Yeah, it's just going to break off on those rocky bottoms.
Yeah. And so literally one of them I had was a really good size one. I could feel him get underneath the ledge on the other side. And I'm stuck. I'm at a stalemate with this fish. I could kind of feel him out, and he's like, what's going on? I'm like, he's under the ledge. I can feel him. He's just stuck. And so he's like, well, and so I just kind of helping him, nudging him. Finally, I just felt him release. He's like, what tippet do you have on it? I'm like, it's 3X. He's like, well, who makes it? I'm like, Cortland. He's like, that's good stuff. Because you could see it was all kind of scraping up.
Yeah.
And he got loose. He came out, and we landed him, and it was just a ton of fun. The backdrop.
It's just spectacular.
Yeah, the backdrop. And, there was so many fish in that pod, and we just kind of were having a blast taking turns. And we never got to the waterfall, which is around the corner.
Yeah.
It's in the movie. I mean, obviously, Gilbert knows where to go. It's a beautiful waterfall. So kind of tell us what happened. I mean, I put my drone up. I could see it. I droned it a little bit. But because of the way the canyon was, I started losing connection in my drone. So I didn't get the epic shot I wanted like Phil and Gilbert got. But tell us what they saw as we go around the corner.
So once you get further up into the canyon, if you hike up about 30, 35 minutes, you'll hit this absolutely huge waterfall that just drops straight into the canyon. Obviously, that's the last place the sea run browns will go up. But then you have this giant waterfall and just kind of a deep slot channel right in the middle of the river. And you're kind of standing on a shelf and just casting into that, hoping for some big sea browns under that waterfall.
And I heard that's typically not like the honey hole of the sea run browns.
I mean, I think the people that go up there usually hook up with something because not many people actually do the hike all the way up there because, like you, they find a pool with 20 fish on the way up and then they just spend the rest of the day there.
Yeah. But boys did catch one.
Yeah,
it wasn't the biggest one, but they caught a nice sea run brown up there. I mean, and you're going to catch any brown trout in that waterfall.
It's going to be spectacular.
It's going to be, I mean,
I mean, most of the rivers there, I mean, what do you think the average size of the fish you caught that week?
Oh, it was what is probably 75 centimeters.
So, 30 inches.
Yeah.
So most of them are going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, we get a bit smaller ones. We get 20-inch sea runs, but they're going to be, most of the fish are going to be good sized.
Yeah, they're fun and fat and healthy, big hype jaws, beautiful to take pictures of. And so that was Galen Sow.
That was Galen Sow, yeah.
I love that river.
It's just spectacular. And it's so diverse. You get that canyon section, and then you get to a more grassy valley kind of with mountains on either side, and then you hit that basically barren desert at the bottom with just black sand and gravel.
And that's when you put your drone up, you can see all the braids.
Yeah.
All the braids of the colors and stuff, and that's out in the movie. Before we talk about a setup for sea run browns, because I think that will be helpful for our listeners to understand what type of equipment I need for the sea runs, there was one more river that we used to fish down further, about a half hour away, you have a little...
So we have that would be River Tungufljót. Yeah, that's a spectacular sea-run brown river. It's in the Battle Hill rotation a few weeks during the summer, but primarily it's just self-catering accommodation. We have a cabin. The accommodates 8 people. You take that cabin and you have the whole river to yourself. Well, that is a very productive sea trout river as well. Some big fish in there.
The effortless Norvice automatic fly tying bobbin is truly a marvel that automatically rewinds itself, making thread management simple, quick, and efficient. The auto bobbin automatically retracts on its own to the correct tying position, yet remains suspended from the hook when released. In addition, the automatic bobbin works perfectly with the Norvice fly tying vise and vise thread post that comes with the vise. The Norvice auto bobbin is the perfect thread management tool. Whether tying on a Norvice or on another vise brand, this bobbin will improve, simplify, and speed up your fly tying. Norvice recommends that the first time automatic bobbin purchaser buy the Norvice bobbin kit. An instructional video on the Norvice YouTube channel demonstrates the automatic bobbin. You can purchase additional spools, the Norvice automatic fly tying bobbin kit, or the spool arbor individually. Find all the details and purchase at nor-vice.com. Norvice, the most innovative fly tying system on the market.
Is that river more for like day tours and like self-catering?
No,
or are you
self-catering and pretty much it's 2-day slots, groups.
2 days, usually a lot of 2-day slots.
Yeah.
For groups. More international travelers or more Icelandic travelers?
It's more locals.
Well, tell them to stop. They can't have it anymore.
Pretty much how it works there is people get first refusal on their slots.
I have first refusal on Tungufljót.
So people...
I love that river.
You have the same groups that pretty much keep their slot year after year, and every year maybe a slot or two opens up. And then we have a couple of weeks where it's in the rotation with Battle Hill when we have what they call Farmers' Day on Geitalandsá. So Geitalandsá is out of rotation because the landowners, they'll have it for a couple of days to fish on their own, and then we have Tungufljót instead. The same happens on Vatnamót, and then we have Tungufljót instead.
It's an awesome river.
It's a spectacular river.
Yeah. I guess it would be Tungufljót, but a little further down.
Oh, yeah.
As you get to the ocean.
Yeah.
And you walk all the way down basically to the ocean there. You know what I'm talking about? Where you park your car and then...
Oh, where it hits that big glacial water.
Yes.
Yeah. Where it hits the glacial river.
You can see the line.
Yeah.
And that's where I caught my first sea run with Mats. And then my second one was...
Up at the waterfall?
The waterfall in Tungufljót. Oh, my goodness. It's an amazing spot.
Those are great pools.
So, as far as setup, what type of rod do I want to use for sea trout?
So you'd want to, single-handed 9 or 10-foot rod, 7-8 weight would be my go-to. You would want to have a floating line as well as some sink tips in case you need it, and leaders both for streamers and nymphing. Then you'd also want, I'd say it's not absolutely necessary, but when fishing Vatnamót, the lower pools in Tungufljót, a double-handed rod comes really in handy.
Yeah.
I like a 13-foot 7-weight, but anything 12 to 14-foot 6, 7, 8 will do fine. And then you'd have just mix of tips if it's floating, sinking, or intermediate.
Okay. So how do I judge the length of the rod that I want to use on a two-handed rod? Because, I know the difference between a 9 and 8.5 foot, like maybe an 8.5 foot 3-weight or 2-weight versus like maybe a 9.5 foot or even an 11 foot 3-weight Euronymphing rod. So I kind of know lengths when it comes to single-handed.
Yeah.
I'm clueless on how to judge the difference between a two-handed rod.
The longer rods are going to be easier to cast further. Pretty much similar as in single-handed. You want a 14-foot 7-weight is going to cast further usually than a 12-foot.
Okay.
So
if you need to cast further.
But, you usually don't have to cast that far with the double-handed, as you know. It's just so to make it easier for the constant casting and swinging.
So that's why you think a nice 13-foot, it's a little bit more manageable than a 14-foot.
So, I know some guys use the 12-foot there, which works great too. I just personally like a 13-footer.
Yeah, because then you have to try to figure out what size fly rod you want to, or two-handed rod you want to land the fish with, because I think that's a whole different experience.
That's what you need on that, man.
Yeah.
It's tricky to net your own fish with a double-hander.
Yeah, and also it's a different experience of like fighting a fish with a two-handed, something that long. It's a whole different experience on, the whole fighting the fish. So I think a 13-foot might be nice. 7 weight.
Yeah, 7 weight. You can go 8 as well, but I like a 7. What were you using when you were down there? Do you remember?
Outney just gave me one of the Lodge two-handers.
So I was probably, those are 12.8. So basically a 13-footer.
It was like a 13-footer, okay. And do you have brands or just whatever?
No, we work a lot with Orvis, so we have quite a few Orvis rods. We also use a bit of the Scandinavian rods, so Guideline and Loop.
And some Douglas?
Yeah.
More the Douglas on the single-handed?
Douglas we use more for the single-handed.
Yeah. So what about lines? You talked a little bit about that, but what would setting up a single-handed rod in, say, Galen Sow? 7 weight.
7/8 floating line. Yeah, for Galen's I'd just go floating line. Maybe have a couple of sink tips in your pocket, but just floating line. I'd always start with streamers or surface flies instead of going to the nymphs, even though you'll probably catch more fish if you nymph all day, but it's more fun when they take the streamers. So, 7-foot leader, nice streamer. Doesn't have to be anything giant, nothing too like
muddlers or coneheads or
muddler, coneheads. I like a lot of sonker type flies, and even just like a sunray, black sunray, maybe slightly weighted, maybe not.
I don't know a lot of people know what sunrays are, but I think a lot of people don't have any idea what a sunray is.
Sunray is literally this simplest fly in the world. You got kind of like a tinsel flash kind of body, and then black hair. That's it. You strip that through.
Is it a Icelandic fly?
No, I don't think. No, it is.
It's a traditional salmon.
It's a traditional salmon style fly, though.
Sunray. I showed somebody my tube flies today. Yeah. I have that new tube fly case, the handmade case I got in Lithuania. My wife bought it for me for Christmas, and I've been.
Is it the Eric one?
Yes.
Yeah. I got one of them from him. Arik. Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce Lithuanian, Eastern European names.
Super cool dude.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful material. So, I actually caught. In the Vatnamat, swinging, I caught it on a tube fly.
Yeah.
One of Steve Washer's tube flies.
And those sea runs, they'll tear up your fly after a while. Yeah. So why not have it on a tube fly? So once you hook it, the fly pops off and you just have the hook in his mouth.
Well, that's my next question, because I was showing somebody my tube flies today, and they're like, why do you tie them on tubes? Like, why not a shank? And I was just, that's a great question.
It's more durable, for one, or in the sense that, if your hook goes bad, you get caught on the bottom, the hook bends out a little bit, you just change out the hook, and the tube is still fine.
Okay. So if you straighten a hook.
You straighten it, yeah. Or even just, you get caught bottom, you're loosening it, you see a little bend, and you're just do I trust that for a 30-inch fish if I hook one in 20 minutes? It's no, you cut that hook off, and you put on another hook on the tube.
That's cool. So you can kind of lengthen the life of your fly if you have a bad hook.
Yeah.
As our brand states, fly fishing is a journey. We've been so glad to share this journey with you. Some of you have even decided to join us on this journey as part of our fly fishing travel program. Whether it's Iceland for monster browns and Atlantic salmon, Alaska for Pacific salmon, Patagonia, the jungle, and many places around the world, we are here to help you fulfill your dream fly fishing destination experience. As part of our curated travel program, we can assist you with all the details and logistics and offer advice to help you catch your bucket list fish. As part of a hosted group or traveling on your own, we are here to help. Check out the travel section at flyfishingjourneys.com.
What other reasons would you tie on a tube? I think we have to, it's a question I'm going to keep asking people, because I want to ask some of my tying buddies who actually tie on tubes, what are the advantages of tying on a tube versus on a shank?
I think especially with the floating flies, basically not dry flies, but floating tubes that you're swinging and stripping, I think you have less weight, so it keeps better top on the water.
Okay.
Because you don't need as long of a hook for,
right.
If you want to have a 3-inch sunray tube, you only need small hook at the back.
Right.
Whereas if you wanted to do it on a long shank fly, it would be a lot heavier.
Sounds good. So the Battle Hill, man, and it's a great place. Now, if somebody wanted to come, can they do a Battle Hill the whole trip?
Yeah.
6 days at Battle Hill?
6 days, 6 nights is our typical operation there. So you arrive, we'd pick you up in Reykjavik or Keflavik midday or in the early morning. You'd arrive at the lodge midday, quick lunch, head out for afternoon session, then fish 5 straight days, and then end on a morning session fishing, and then checking out of the lodge around noon and getting transported back to Keflavik or Reykjavik.
What's a day look like?
So a day, it varies obviously because we're sea-run browns, we're chasing daylight when we're fishing. The best time is usually early morning or just before dusk, so exact timings vary a little bit the season, but usually breakfast at the lodge, 7, 8, head out to fish, 9, pretty much until it gets darkish.
Okay.
Which varies in the season, and then head back to the lodge for dinner. We usually have lunch just on the river, pack some soup or pasta and some sandwiches and eat it right by the river.
And then what are some sightseeing around Battle Hill that you can do? Like if somebody wanted to tack on some sightseeing, maybe take a half a day instead of fishing?
I mean, you got the biggest biggest glacier in Iceland is just down the street. You got the big glacier lagoon. I think you went there, right? With this giant lagoon with giant icebergs floating down.
By you.
Yeah.
They literally, you watch them float right by you.
And then, I mean, there's a lot of waterfalls in the area, as you've seen.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of sightseeing options in the area.
Yeah, and then Diamond Beach.
Beach, yeah.
On the other side of
the glacier lagoon.
Yeah. These huge, giant, basically would have been icebergs or just rocks of ice that come down.
And they're broken up in the waves in the ocean. And then
they come back up onto the beach.
And just look like little diamonds on the beach.
Yeah, it's wild. It's a wild place. And you had mentioned it, but talk one more time. If people have kind of come here towards the end of this podcast, and we've talked so much about the Sea Run Browns, reiterate the seasons one more time from Sindri.
April until mid-May, we're fishing for fish going back down to the ocean because the sea runs, they'll make 10, 15 runs back and forth to the ocean in their lifetime. And then by end of May, all the sea runs are out in the ocean.
They're only going one way in the spring.
They're going down in the spring. So then in the fall,
I didn't know that.
In the fall, so starting the first fish will show up end of July, early August. Then August, September, the run is coming back into the rivers, and we're fishing until October 20th. So April, mid-May, and then August, September, October.
So when they come up in October, they stay in the river for the winter?
They winter in the river. So
all of them?
Pretty much most of them.
I didn't know that.
So the typical would be they come in August, September, they stay in the river until November when they would spawn, finish the spawn, and then most of them will stay in the river until next spring when they'll go out. Their main feeding is done in the ocean. They will eat in the rivers, they'll eat small insects, bait fish, all that, but most of their weight they're gaining in the ocean when they're going for bait fish, crabs, shrimp, and everything. And their main feeding cycle in the ocean is during the summer months. So June, July, August, when you got those bait fish and big shrimp close to shore.
So the last day was the middle of August, towards the end of August, you said season closes?
October 20th is when the season closes.
Do you ever see them in November?
Oh, yeah.
December? Do you see them in the river?
I see them there and see them in March again. And we've been tagging quite a few fish now there. I don't know if the guys were tagging while you're there, but we've tagged about 200 fish in the system there just to try to see where they're going, where they're staying and all that. And right outside the lodge in Tverovat, way up in that, we tagged a fish in 2022. So way up that, past the lodge in that river. So last spring, the spring after, we caught that fish up in Girlandsá.
Oh, wow.
So the same fish, he had come in from the ocean, ran up the big glacial water, gone up in Fossolar, then up in Tverovat, about 30 kilometers or 20 miles from the ocean. That same fish has probably decided, well, I don't want to this is the colder of the river in the system, so I spawn here, but I'm not going to spend the winter here. He ran back down to the big glacier river, ran up 5 miles, and then into another river called Girlandsá, because that one's slightly warmer, so has more insect life, so it could probably more comfortable for him to winter over.
Wow. Are these electronic tags or just kind of marking tags?
Marking tags.
That's pretty cool.
So
you're taking notes and stuff?
We're taking notes, so every fish that gets tagged gets photographed, measured in weight, marked where it got caught and where it got tagged, and then we've only had a few fish, about 10 fish that have been re-caught, but then we see, okay, he grew this much in 1 year, he went from this river to this river.
That's cool.
So it's pretty nerdy but very exciting stuff.
Well, buddy, it's been great to have you back on the podcast. And
on the podcast back. It's always a pleasure, buddy.
Man, it's great talking about sea trout and hearing about all of our great adventures in Iceland. If somebody wanted to find out more information, as well as jumping on to flyfishingjourneys.com, how can they find more information about you, Sindri, and then Fish Partner?
Fishpartner.com or Fish Partner on any social media.
Fish Partner it is, guys. We've had Sindri on the podcast. Sindri, it's been a blast talking about sea trout, and thanks for being back with us.
Thanks for having me again, buddy.
You've been listening to Fly Fishing Journeys with your host, Rob Giannino. To be notified of new episodes, subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts. You can follow us on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. For past episodes, check out flyfishingjourneys.com. Fly fishing is a journey, and we're glad you're on this journey with us.